Have you ever noticed how confident women become after they've lost some weight? You can see them starting new businesses, taking new initiatives, or stepping into those leadership positions they've always dreamt of, or even stepping into the ministry and calling that God has for their life. And it seems like the weight loss has completely transformed their personalities. They become bold, they become brave, they step out and step up for what they believe in, and they even take risks that they usually wouldn't take. You know what I've realized as a woman, a GP, and even a woman in this journey myself is that it's not the weight loss that brought about all these things. All those talents, those gifts, the leadership ability, and the gifts and talents that they're displaying, they're not new. They've always been there. They're just buried under all the weight and all the beliefs that they had about themselves. I'm Dr. Rolly, and today I want to talk to you about the parable of the talents. I want you to ask yourself a critical question. Are you burying your talents and your gifts behind your weight? Are you using your weight as an excuse to not step forward into what God has called you to? We're going to look at that and what that looks like by examining the parable of the talents. Women seem to gain new confidence after they have lost weight. But what is really happening here? Is it that the women were completely like lacking talent and lacking skills before they lost weight, and then suddenly they lost weight and everything just sort of came together? I think the honest truth is all these things were in them all along. And the experience of losing weight and looking in a way that they're happier with, having an outlook that they're more comfortable with, has almost like released them to step forward and do those things. You hear a lot of women, at least I have heard a lot of women say things like, oh, I will step into that position. I have this idea for a business, but I don't think I can do it now because um, I don't look the part and I don't feel right for that position. If I lose a bit of weight here and there, or I get this certain look or this certain appearance, then I'll feel more presentable. I'll feel more like I can step into that position or that environment or take up that ministry. By doing this, we have allowed our weight and physical appearance to become like a shield. It's like a barrier that keeps us protected. It's protecting us from stepping forward, protecting us from the failure that might happen. Because when you step out, you might fail, you might not work out. And we've used that to keep us pretty safe, in a safe place where we're like, okay, I don't have to step out now because I don't look the part, the parts that I think I should look like. And it's like a shield around you, it's like a protective cover, and it's protecting you from the vulnerability that comes with stepping out. And, we need to be honest with ourselves that there is a time in life where we need to, um, yes, we might need to stay covered and stay hidden and do some healing work. But there also comes a time where we need to begin to step forward and begin to allow God to move us forward in what He has called us to. So the honest truth is, God is not looking at your weight to decide what He is going to ask you to do. He's not looking at your outward appearance to decide what He's going to ask you to do. Let's look at the parable of the talents. So Jesus tells this story. He's telling a story about a master, and the master had three servants, and he gave them money or talents, gifts. But he gave them money and he went away. And on his return, two of them had used it and invested it, and they had some returns to give to the master. And the third servant, who the master gave one talent to, he had gone and buried it. Now, when the master returned, he was very pleased with the first two servants. Was happy with their returns and he encouraged them. But the third servant, he was furious with. And what did the third servant say? That is it's key to understand what he said. He said, I buried my talent because I know you, my master, that you are a hard man. And that's why I buried it. And the master said, well, if you knew I was a hard man, then maybe you should have actually done something with my money and brought a return. But the key thing here is the perspective of the third servant. It's the idea that the master is a hard man. He believed that the master was not good. The master in this story is God. Now, where are you, in your mindset about God's character? Do you believe that God is hard, that is a difficult God to please? And are you, because of that belief, holding back, thinking that, oh, I am not looking good enough for God to use me? I'm not having my health all together enough for God to use me or for me to step into what God has called me to. We need to change this perspective. God is a good father and he loves you. He's not a hard taskmaster and he's not waiting for you to attain some kind of perfection or get something all together before you can step into what he has called you to. At the end of the day, we will all answer to the master, who is God. We'll all answer to him. We will have to be accountable about what we have done with what he has given us, with our gifts, with our talents, and our resources. And unfortunately, I have to say, with all the love that I have, that hiding behind your weight, saying, Lord, I wanted to do it, but I didn't feel like I looked good enough. I didn't feel like I had enough energy or time. These are not suitable excuses. We need to move forward and begin to see from God's perspective how to actually step forward in faith. So, what is God's perspective? God's perspective is very different from yours. When you look in the mirror, you see whatever you see, your physical appearance. But in Bible, in Samuel, if you remember when Samuel went to anoint David, Samuel told David's father, man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks in the heart. God sees your heart. Don't forget that. And that's mainly, basically, what God cares about is the state of your heart. And God does acknowledge that the outward appearance is important and it's important to man. And yes, most likely he has called you to men and women to minister to them or to use your gifts and talents in that arena. But he's not calling you based on your appearance. And the Bible tells us in Psalm 139, it says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And that is how God sees you. That is God's perspective of you. Now, right now, regardless of what state you think you're in or how you feel about yourself, God calls you fearfully and wonderfully made. And he has called you and given you all that it takes to fulfill and achieve that calling on your life. Just as he called David, David did not look like a king. He was the least one expected. Even his father didn't expect him to be anointed as king. But God called him anyway. He called him from the fields, not in the palace. God called Moses. Moses was not he was a stutterer, he was a stammerer. He wasn't the one standing up and speaking to nations. But God called him to lead the whole nation. And he did. God called Gideon. Gideon was fearful, he was a coward. But what did God call him? A valiant man. So that is God's perspective. So stop and think, what is God's perspective of me? Put to one side what you think of yourself and what the outward appearance is telling you when you look in the mirror or when you look at your checkbook or when you assess your energy, whatever. Put that to one side. All that is true and important, but start to see from God's perspective. And when you start to see from God's perspective and choose to believe that that is true, then you can begin to take steps in faith towards what God has called you to do. I'll give myself as an example. Starting this YouTube channel was something similar to that. Before I started, I did have it in mind for a long time. I knew God was calling me to do something like this. He was giving me these ideas and thoughts about nutrition, about health, as I was going through my own health journey. And I would write them down and I would pray about them and I would apply them. but I wasn't really sharing them with anyone, maybe a few friends and close people. And I knew in the back of my mind that God is calling me to speak up and share this with multiple people, on a platform somewhere. Uh, but it came to a point where I knew, okay, it's time to start. And there was that tug in my mind, like, oh, but you don't have this right. You need that kind of equipment and that kind of thing. So literally, I had to step out in faith and just do it, even though I didn't feel like I was ready. I didn't look like I was ready. If you go back on my YouTube videos, you'll see I wasn't looking ready. They were not perfect. I was out in the field somewhere, about to exercise, and I just took my phone out and I recorded the video and I put it out there and I just kept going. But over time, I can see the evolution of how things have actually improved because I took the step out in faith, just simply starting. And then God started to work on the outward appearance, the outward thing that I thought needed to come together, you know, and they truly do need to come together because man does look on the outward appearance. The outward appearance matters. We don't wait till everything is together before we step out. When we do that, we are not walking by faith. That is a works based mentality. We're not walking in grace anymore. We're trying to fulfill it by the works of our hands. And there's a difference between works and faith. When you're going by works, you're going by, oh, I will do it when I am ready, when I feel ready, or when I look ready, or when I have the right um, health, the right feeling, I feel comfortable in my body. So now I'm going to go out there and do it. That is going by your works because it is by your strength and by what you can achieve. But when you go by faith, you are going by his word. Just because he said it, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I will believe that as I go ahead and take some steps, you don't have to take huge steps, it can be little baby steps. And he knows your heart. As long as you are taking those steps towards where he has called you, he will be with you and he will make the path straight. He will align, he will make things align and work together to bring you to where you actually need to be. So, like I said, it's true that we have some real physical barriers, particularly when it comes to our health. We have some barriers like chronic pain, fatigue, brain fog. These are real physical problems that could be in the way of you stepping forward. I don't want you to think that I'm minimizing those things. I see that and I know that, and I've experienced some of that. But what do we do with those? Are we going to let them hold us back? What we need to do is present them to the Lord because He already knows your weaknesses. He knows that you're experiencing all these pains and all this, you know, emotional, physical, psychological stress, or maybe you just have physical chronic pain, brain fog, tiredness. God wants to lead you out of those things. And the first step is to go to Him, bring those limitations to Him and say, you know what, God, this here I am, these are the things that are physically bothering me. What do I do? And what it will give you, it may look like going to see your GP or going to see your healthcare provider and talking through these things and beginning to find solutions. It may look like learning about how to balance your energies through your nutrition. It may look like rest, him telling you, you need to rest, you need to get certain amount of sleep. Or it may look like relationship, dealing with issues that are in your relationships that are holding you back, that are causing that emotional stress. So there are various ways that God will guide you and give you wisdom to walk through the very real physical barriers that are around you. God has given you your body, fearfully and wonderfully made. He's giving you your body as a vessel to use for His honor and His glory. And He knows that in this world, there's so many challenges that we face physically. So there's nothing to hide from Him. He has paid the price for you to walk in health and wholeness. So go to Him with whatever struggles you have and let your heart be open for Him to lead you. Let today be the last day that you allow your physical impairments or your weight or your appearance to stop you from stepping into what God has called you to. Walk out those things by faith, what He has put in you. Take some steps, whatever steps you can take today. It could be writing some things down or making a plan or just going on your knees and telling God that you are ready. Whatever steps you can begin taking. Is it a course you need to take? Is it a book you need to read? Or a colleague you need to talk to about those aspirations and begin to make a roadmap of how to get there? Whatever it is that comes to your heart, start doing it. Do what you can do. It will meet you there and it will take you beyond what you could imagine. I'd like to leave you with a little assignment. Reflect on your own life. Look, search in your heart. Are there any hidden treasures or talents or gifts that have been buried behind excuses about your health, your weight, or your physical circumstances? I want you to dig deep. Just identify one and write it down. You can share it even in the comments. We would love to know. But I want you to unearth something that you have buried for such a long time. Identify why you've buried it and bring that before the Lord. And then make a decision to begin to steward your body well for His glory so that you can begin to step into and walk in the calling that He has for your life. And I would really love to invite you to my community. It's called the True Wellness Tribe. It's an online community for Christian women. And our goal is to help you begin to work through some of these things. Some of these health and physical challenges, or even being overweight or obese, that could be holding you back from stepping into your calling and living your life out in a way that honors God. We want to help you walk through them and want to help you to begin to look after yourself, steward your precious body to honor God. So the link will be in the description below. I would love to see you there. God bless.